They know the same time. See the ads.
This is the spot for the seat. Why would they put me over here?
That's not. Pass the microphone right over you.
Right?
How are you? Good.
It's kind of hard to replace elevators
That's very true.
when you're working all day. Some days it's okay. Sometimes I get and then all of a sudden that person starts to like the other days.
How are you?
Hi, good.
Good. So I'm going to be doing a PowerPoint, basically, up there, and I don't. I print out my talking points left in the Xerox machine. So I don't remember what I wanted to say, but I think that would. You can still see the board members, so I don't think that has to go up and down. But if I
didn't realize
I
that
maybe
was one of the things you just said that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I know. That's well. Like the money.
The binders are even, look at these
I'm not
binders.
I like this a little bit better than the first one. No, mine. Everybody else is fine, but I've never.
Getting myself a picture of all this stuff outside. Sure, one of that here. Some picture taken.
I think we're mostly.
Well, I do think that, wow, we did turn that up. That's excellent. Thank you. So I think we're a couple minutes after 6, and we do have a quorum at this point. So I would like to call to order the Board of Directors of SAD 52, and if Carlos could lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Thank you. Our first order of business would be to act on the minutes of February 11th. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we accept those under general consent. That brings us to communications. Kim.
Thank you, Betsy. I would like to report the retirement of James Brown, who is a Tripp Middle School custodian, effective September 13th, 2021. So we've got a little bit of time still with James. James has been in service to the district for 15 years.
Thank you. That brings us to item 4, budget work session. And from a process standpoint, just to kind of remind everyone of how we have begun approaching this in the last few years, we begin this evening with an overview of the initial proposed budget. Superintendent Brandt will provide that for us, and I'm just, as she's looking up at the screen, I'm remembering an email she sent to board members reminding us that we would want to sit out in the auditorium seats for this point in the activities rather than look at a blank screen. So, but we will then, after this evening's activities of receiving this initial proposed budget, having the opportunity to take in the principals and directors' executive summaries and receive these fancy binders for some light evening reading for board members as well. We'll proceed along as the timeline has been indicated as far as looking at individual warrant articles and taking those up in far more detail than we will do this evening. So that will continue over the course of the next meetings. And just a reminder too, our meetings as we consider the budget will begin at 6 p.m. instead of 6:30 as well. So I think that's most of the housekeeping for tonight. We'll try to remind everyone of what the process will look like as we go, so we all try to stay on track as well. So I will turn it over to Kim, and board members should find ourselves some seats, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, would you please? Okay, so good evening. Tonight, I'm going to present an overview of the initial proposed budget for FY22, meaning school year 21-22. And our administrators are going to share their executive summaries as well. Those executive summaries will give a little bit more detail than my overview will. Okay. Oh, that's so tiny. Okay, no, I don't expect you to do that. Let me just go here. Okay. So this year has been like no other year we've ever experienced. Public education in a pandemic has brought a lot of challenges, but also a lot of reasons to be very happy and to celebrate, and also some good successes along with those challenges. So when we first started in August, for example, we were told we had certain health and safety requirements that we had to implement. Those include things like wearing masks, hand washing and sanitizing, distancing is a big one for us, doing the daily health assessments and staying home if you have symptoms, as well as constant deep cleaning. Distancing was particularly big. That resulted in all of our administrators taking their measuring, their yardsticks and their tape measures and measuring every square inch of classrooms and buildings to figure out how students could fit into classrooms, to change out furniture as needed, to figure out how students would move through the buildings, how they would eat. I mean, everything that we do in school normally had to be looked at through that lens of distancing. So the celebration with that is that we were actually able to do that. And the district really worked together as a team, and we created guides like return to work, return to school, so that everyone knew what expectations would be and what those new routines would be. So when I look back on that now, I feel like that was tremendous work that was done this fall. I was also very concerned initially about the students who depend on us for food, but I had no cause for concern because the food service department began delivering meals the very first day the students were out of school, and they never stopped. They've delivered every single day, week after week, through holidays, through the summer, and days 9 to 10, all the way through this year. So that has been a tremendous success to see how the food service department mobilized their teams, figured out how to deliver food to lunches, as well as get food to children who are at home or remote. We also had constantly evolving information from the CDC about what we needed to do when we had a positive case of COVID-19. Our nurses have been tremendous. They've worked closely with our principals and with me to read through that changing and evolving guidance and make sure we were doing everything we could do to keep everybody healthy and safe. And we've gotten really good at it, which is not something that we aspired really necessarily to do, but it's worked out very, very well. That's a huge success. We also have teachers who went from teaching students in person 5 days each week to teaching students in person 4 days each week and writing remote lesson plans for 3 days each week and communicating with parents, supporting struggling learners, having morning meetings and HPT and advisory, looking out for students' well-being, both academically and social-emotionally, as well as mental health issues. So everybody has figured out how to do that in this hybrid model, which has not been easy, but everyone came together. And as imperfect as the model is, we have students in school. We started school earlier than many surrounding districts. We've had very few interruptions to that, and students are still in person. That is particularly remarkable when you know the statistic that about 35% of the students across our country have had no in-person instruction at all this year. So over a third of U.S. students have not had any in-person instruction. So again, 2 days isn't what we love. We want 5 days, but 2 days is a lot better than nothing, and no in-person at all. So again, another success. The deep cleaning. We use the federal emergency relief funding to hire temporary custodians to help our professionals in making sure that we were doing all of the deep cleaning that needed to be done on a regular basis. And between cohorts, at night, whenever it had to happen, it has happened. So again, the team got together and we've been able to meet those requirements. Transporting students. So instead of having 70 students on a bus, we could have maybe 20 students on a bus. However, we figured that out too. Some windows open in the front and the back, one student per seat, and we can bring the students to school. Our families helped out a lot with that. We asked that anyone who could transport their own children consider doing that, so that we would have enough buses to transport those whose families couldn't transport them, and it has worked out for the most part. Technology and infrastructure. Back in the summer, the administrative team was saying, what are we going to do around technology? We really need upgraded technology in order to support students who are learning remotely, but we had some major barriers, and they included teachers did not have good devices to support Zooming, for example. Students did not have one-on-one devices, and the infrastructure in our schools and the central office would not support a lot of Zooming in. We have taken care of almost all those barriers. We use federal emergency relief funding to buy better devices for teachers so they can now support the Zooming. We spent federal money on one-to-one devices for students. So now we finally are at almost that last day when all of our students have a one-on-one device and a good one-on-one device. And thanks to the projects that Randy did, I'm looking for Randy, just to see him, that Randy had done in all of the school buildings in the central office, our infrastructure, our technology infrastructure has also been improved. So we're almost at the point where we can start thinking about having students join live classes for certain parts of instruction. And that is huge, and it's taken us until now to be able to surpass or surmount those barriers, but we're getting there. And that took vision from the beginning, and it took stick-with-itness, which our district definitely has, because we're seeing some great progress. Also, in all the federal money that we did receive so far, it was for direct impact from COVID-19. It could not supplant the regular budget, meaning we couldn't use it to buy stuff we normally have in the budget. It could only be purchased for things that were a result of the pandemic and the pandemic's impact. So the team, the administrative team, worked diligently this fall with something else to identify our top priorities and needs, make sure it would fit for the criteria that we had to fit it into, and to make sure that we had the vision of how this would help children and staff, not just now, but for years to come in our district. And that was a tremendous job that we've done. So there are so many reasons to celebrate, even though this year has been challenging. And again, most of us have never lived through a pandemic, so there's no playbook on how to do this. We're addressing problems as they come and moving forward with those. So for next year, of course, all of us are craving that time when our students are back in person 5 days each week. We miss having them in school with us. We know that that's great for learning, and it's what we're used to. It's so much easier than what we're doing in the hybrid model, honestly. We have some questions that are unanswered, however. What's going to happen with vaccinations? Are they going to move forward the way we hope that they will? Which health and safety requirements will remain in place? And I'm thinking primarily of distancing. Will that distancing requirement remain in place? Because as long as it does, we will have to be in a hybrid model. Or will that change or be removed, right? Which would be ideal if it's safe to do so. What will the CDC directives be around positive cases? Will we have to continue to quarantine close contacts like we've been doing all year? Or will something change with that because enough people are vaccinated? And then will our enrollment increase back to the 2,000 more students that we've had for the past several years, right? Our enrollment this October 1st was down by 90 students. My hope is that we have all of those students return to us and even a few more, and that we're back to normal. But there are a lot of unanswered questions we're going to have to wait to see. The re-entry team, we have a group of over 20. Is it 23, Teresa? 25 professionals in the district who have gathered together to take a look at where we are currently and to brainstorm ideas for better support for struggling learners and for what we're doing, for our practices with teaching and learning right now, and how to better support staff as well. So we'll be giving regular updates all the rest of this year about what that team is coming up with. I think because we're beginning to remove a lot of barriers, that we'll have some really good ideas come out of this. So what does inform the school budget every year as we sit down and decide what needs to be part of that budget? It's this whole long list. It is, of course, our mission for excellence in education. It is our strategic plan and goals that we set in that. It is our student needs on every level, academic, social, emotional,
sometimes physical, right, and mental health, of course. It's also those things that are non-academic that are absolutely necessary, like clean and safe facilities and safe transportation. There are also, some years there are unfunded mandates. You may remember that a couple of examples of unfunded mandates would be when we are required to have an Ed Tech 2 in every pre-K classroom who has more than 8 children in it. That was an unfunded state mandate. We also had to have playground equipment. That was last year. This year, we don't have an unfunded state mandate that's going to impact the general budget. What we do have is the distancing requirement, and that does impact everything that we do. And I think that the federal emergency relief money that we have received illustrates very well how costly the financial impact has been of the pandemic. Rising costs of goods and services, that happens every year. One example that pops to mind is ADS is our financial software, and that has increased from like $20,000 to almost $24,000. So that kind of thing happens as well. And enrollment in class sizes. We spend a lot of time looking at how many students we have, how many teachers we have, what our class sizes are. We have some policy around class size as well. This district has a nice history of having very reasonable class sizes, which we value highly. So I'll be talking more about class sizes and enrollment on our March 11th budget workshop when we begin to review Warrant Article 3 regular instruction. Contractual obligations. So contractual obligations have to do with the negotiated salaries and benefits of the employees in the district. And just to remember that in any school budget, about 80% of that represents the cost of the employees. And those do go up every single year. And then changes in state subsidy. If we get more state subsidy, it makes it a little easier for us. If we have less state subsidy, it makes it a little bit more challenging. One thing that we know over time is that MSAD 52 spends less per pupil than the state average. So the most recent data is, I think it's 1819, I can check on that, shows us one example, which is the state average of per pupil expenditure is the $12,442. Our district spent $10,863. And I have data back to the 2007-2008 school year, and that pattern is consistent. MSAD 52 spends less per pupil than the state average every year during that period of time. So how do we pay for public education? There's state subsidy and there's the local share. So the essential programs and services funding formula is the model that is used to determine how much it costs to educate our students. It is based on, or is enrollment driven, and it is so that every child across Maine has an equitable opportunity to achieve the Maine learning results. That's the idea. This is an adequacy model. It's like a Ford Fiesta model, right? Better than riding with a horse and buggy, but it's certainly not a Jaguar or a Cadillac or even an Explorer. It's a very much an adequacy model. The EPS formula tells us both what our state subsidy will be, as well as what the local share that is required will be. We learn what our subsidy is through a form called the ED 279, and that breaks down, here's your student enrollment, here are the teacher ratios, here's what you're going to get for both state subsidy, and here's the required local share. For local share, that required local share must be raised in order for us to access the state subsidy as well. And for us, it's based on the number of students in each town, percentage for each town, and it's based on valuation, which is provided by the Maine Revenue Service. And the valuation determines a town's ability to pay toward education. The mill rate for next year is 7.90, which is down from this current year, which was 8.18. So what does that mean for our budget for next year? Our context is that we've had a decrease of approximately $429,000 in state subsidy. Now, state subsidy, I said, was enrollment driven, and I mentioned earlier that that's based on the last 2 October 1st student counts. For us, the October 1st, 2020 count showed that our district was down in students by 90, right? Our student population or enrollment had decreased by 90 students. So that gets averaged, but obviously fewer students are going to result in less subsidy. So we have a decrease in subsidy that is substantial. We have an increase in student needs. We know through the pandemic that students have additional needs that we're going to be addressing and are addressing now as well. We also know that the negotiated contractual obligations, which are the health insurance and the salaries, are going to increase. Health insurance goes up every single year, and we generally budget, like we did this current year, at 10%. If we did nothing, if we had a completely flat budget, the exact funding level that we have this current year, that would still result in a 3.41% tax impact to our communities because of the decrease in subsidy and the increase in the other things. So, the initial budget proposal that I'm talking about tonight is going to include a recommendation related to carry forward. Carry forward is that money we take from our fund balance. It does not have an impact on taxpayers. It does, however, help to offset tax impact for the following year. I'm going to recommend that we prepay certain items with unexpended funds in this current year's budget that are the result of the pandemic and unfilled positions. I'm going to recommend the use of ESSER 2 funds as a 2-year offset for 3 particular positions. I'm going to recommend that we begin or establish a reserve account for technology because we have new devices and we have one-on-one devices now. So in the next 5 to 7 years, we're going to be looking at replacing those devices, so I want to establish a reserve fund for that. And then I'm about to overview the warrant articles and the increases in those. So I'm going to talk about the increases in each warrant article. If there isn't a warrant article that I'm discussing, it's because it doesn't have an increase. Now, a couple things. All of those things that I was just saying a minute ago, they do not impact the general budget, right? Fund balance is already existing. And contractual obligations show up in every warrant article, just about every warrant article. So keep that in mind, please. Thank you, Evan. All right, so for regular instruction, warrant article 3, we are requesting a half-time pre-K teacher and a half-time pre-K ed tech 2. This actually maintains current staffing levels. If the board remembers last August, we had a second grade teacher retire, and we did not fill that position because in the hybrid model we didn't need to fill it. However, we used half of that position to add to pre-K because we had the enrollment numbers that needed that. So this is new, but it actually maintains our current level of staffing. We're also asking for an increase of 1 day per week for the school counselor at TES. This is something that we've been looking at for several years now. And we have Chromebooks for the incoming freshmen, which we do every year. And remember, we bought a lot of devices, but we couldn't supplant the budget. So the Chromebooks are in there. For warrant article 4 special education, there is an increase to the money for out of district placements, basically. We are also going to recommend the elimination of 1 special education teacher at Green Central School because special education director Drysdale every year and during the year assesses the number of students with IEPs and our teachers' caseloads and determines how many teachers we need according to students that we have. And it's been determined that we do not need this 1 position. On a side note, this position has been unfilled for several months now. In warrant article 6, other instruction, again, maintaining the current level of programming or offerings, there is some increase related to transportation costs in that warrant article. And in student and staff support, again, some small increases, 1 in translation and interpretation services for our ELL instruction, 1 to support some additional coursework offerings for our gifted and talented education students. And the technology line is increasing for licensing for some of the devices that we have now. In systems administration, that is the school board, office of the superintendent, and the business office. School board legal liability insurance has increased.
The Maine School Boards Association, and that's the membership that our school board members are involved with, those dues have increased. And I mentioned earlier when I was giving an example of goods and services that increase every year, our financial software, which is ADS, we are hosting, which is a good thing because it increases security, but that price has increased as well for next year. In warrant Article 10, transportation, we are looking to get 3 buses with 5-year lease purchase. We do receive subsidy to help offset some of the cost of those buses. We are increasing money for tires to reflect the needs of our fleet, and vehicle parts have increased a little bit. The overall, however, warrant Article 10 transportation is going to reflect a decrease. For facilities, there's an increase in property insurance, but again, in warrant Article 11 facilities, this reflects overall a decrease. And debt service, well, I didn't add the last one. In debt service, we have an increase for the Siemens 2 Phase 2 bond. This will be year 2 of 20 on that. And an increase at Leeds Central School for the school revolving renovations fund, which will be year 1 of 10. We can talk more about it. For food service is actually going to represent a decrease. Food service has requested less subsidy than they have this current school year. And for adult education, this warrant article is flat. It did not increase, it did not decrease, exactly the same. So, before I started talking about the warrant articles, I said there were several things that I would be recommending for the proposed budget. One of those things is I'm recommending increasing the carry forward by $150,000. So it would go from $405,000 to $555,000. Again, that does not impact taxpayers. That comes from fund balance. I'm also proposing that we use a little over $500,000 in unexpended funds in our current budget that are related to the pandemic and unfilled positions to prepay certain items. Michelle will be talking about which items those are in her executive summary. I'm also recommending that we fund the 3 instructional coaching positions through the ESSER 2 funds for the next 2 years. That takes them out of the general budget and puts them into those ESSER 2 funds for the next 2 years. On the 3rd year, we would be looking to put them back into the general budget, but it would take them out for the next 2 years. I'm also recommending that the board establish a technology reserve fund for $50,000. Again, that's from fund balance, so no impact to taxpayers. This initial proposed budget reflects a budget increase of 1.77% and an overall tax impact of 5.7%. A little bit of background, history of tax impact over the last several years. For FY22, we're proposing a budget that would be a 5.7, oh, I didn't change it, 5.70, proposed tax impact. Last year, the board adopted a budget that was a 0% tax impact to the communities. FY20 was a 1.8%. And I thought that the debt service came off of that just to remind us that that made a difference in what we were able to do with the budget in a good way. In FY19, it was 4.08. In FY18, just under 5%. In FY17, 6.16%. So we have a series of budget workshops, as Chairperson Bullock was talking about in the beginning of our meeting tonight. And these are the dates. Tonight is the initial overview of the proposed FY22 budget. Our next budget workshop and board meeting is on March 11th. And that is when we begin to go line by line through the different warrant articles. We start with regular instruction and special education. March 18th takes us to transportation, as you can see, facilities maintenance, debt service, and food service. March 25th, we continue with other instruction, student and staff support, system-wide admin, school admin, and adult ed. Then on April 1st, that is when the board adopts the final proposed budget. And then on April 8th, a call for the district budget meeting on May 6th, and for the budget validation referendum on May 20th, and sign the budget warrant. And then we always have a special budget workshop just in case we need it. And these are really important dates for us. May 6th, the district budget vote that we are at this moment planning to have right here in the auditorium at 6 p.m. And May 20th would be the budget validation referendum at local polling places. And that's it for me. I think at this time we move forward. Chair Bullard, do you want to move? I don't think we have any more presentations if the board wants to move back. Okay.
Although these seats are quite comfortable, so.
Well, we could keep going on this.
No, it's just this year. Well, thank you, Superintendent Brandt, for taking us through the overview of the 21-22 budget. And this brings us to item 4.1.3, Principals and Directors Executive Summaries. So we will launch right into that and look forward to hearing those.
Good evening. As Superintendent Brandt mentioned during her opening, for our elementary schools, our proposal includes the addition of one half-time pre-K teacher, as well as one half-time pre-K educational technician 2 to address enrollment needs at Turner Primary School. It also requests an addition of 1 day a week to the school counselor position at Turner Elementary School in order to make that a full-time position. We do want to note that all of the other elementary schools in the district do have school counselors 5 days a week. For our elementary schools, this proposal also includes the addition of some software that's become absolutely vital to our instructional model, particularly now that we have one-to-one devices. Our software requests will include things like Reading A to Z+, eSpark, IXL, and/or Happy Numbers, Nearpod, and Breakout EDU. That concludes our executive summary of the elementary schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as we move through the executive summaries, just a housekeeping note, these executive for board members, primarily these executive summaries are contained in as kind of the first page after each tab of a particular warrant article. So if you just read, as folks present, if you just remind us which warrant article you're speaking to, and we can go to the appropriate tabs as well. Thanks. Perfect. Carlos, pointing that out. Much appreciated.
I'm going to continue with warrant article 3. And I'm going to pick up the middle school. This year, Trip was able to purchase computer software to enhance the remote learning, as well as save some paper from making work packets. This software programs that were added are No Red Ink for grammar, vocabulary.com, ALEC for math, and IXL for social studies. This was a little more than $11,189 value that was covered with CRF funds. Next year, this will have to be part of the regular budget. These programs were initially purchased to support remote learning, and we have learned that this software is also effective for practice and supporting professional learners, so we included it in the initial budget. Decreases were made in other areas of regular instruction to offset the impact of these software programs. And another big curricular item that was covered with CRF funds is the science program that was purchased. Because we lost our online platform last year because it had expired. This year we used the CRF funds to purchase science software for an online textbook. And we also purchased regular textbooks to be used in the classrooms so that students would have access to material whether in classrooms or at home. So regular instruction at Trip has an increase of $722.25, or 1.53%. Warrant Article 3 for 9 through 12 at the high school. This proposed budget maintains current program offerings at Leverrier High School. The high school portion of the warrant article includes funds for the purchase of Chromebooks for the incoming ninth graders, as This, as Brent pointed out, that's an annual cost. Last year, we requested funds to replace an existing set of physical science textbooks. We did purchase those textbooks with budgeted funds, and additionally, we were able to purchase other textbooks to support our students during our COVID school, which I think I coined that term last week, 2 weeks ago. So we used CRF funds to purchase those textbooks, so you will not see any textbooks in this year's requested budget. The entire warrant article for warrant article 3 reflects an increase of $404,158, or 3.7%. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm special, when am I? I don't know. I'm Rebecca Drysdale, the Director of Special Education. I'm reading to you warrant Article 4. So in 2021-2022, special education budget represents reductions and increases to meet our students' needs. Annually, the Special Education Department, as Superintendent Brandon pointed out in her presentation, examines efficiencies across the district. In doing so, we made several reductions, but also increases have been made to meet our faith obligations for students with individual education plans. Reductions include a vacant special education teaching position at Green Central School to reflect our student numbers requiring special education services. The cost of one of our out-of-district placements has been reduced because the student's IEP team determined that he or she will be returning to public school. Resource and self-contained supplies were reduced and will be supplemented by the grant funding through local entitlement. The school psychologist conference funding has also been reduced and will be supplemented by the grant funding as well through local entitlement. So increases reflect the budget areas in the areas of contractual obligations, special purpose private school placements or out of district, to reflect the increase in student tuition, our main care seat obligations to support the special purpose private school placements, and contracted services based on student services to meet our FAPE obligations. So warrant Article 4 reflects an increase of $502,668, or an 8.53 increase.
Good evening. Warrant Article 6, Other Instruction. The proposed budget for Warrant Article 6, Other Instruction for 2021-2022 is $587,561. This is an increase of $28,798, or 5.09%. 7-8 co-curricular. This portion of the article is currently up $61, or 1.57% from the previous budget, and maintains current programming levels. This reflects the increase in transportation costs. This line is used to transport 7th graders to CMCC Career Fair each spring, robotics tournaments shared with Leavitt Area High School, Civil Rights Team, and District 2 Music. All other programming has maintained the same budget levels. 7-8 athletics individual sports. The athletics general budget is currently up $6,355.40, or 18.8% from the previous budget. The majority of the increase is transportation, with an increase in supply line for the impact testing for athletes. We did make that request last year, and we're making the request again this year for that, so that you'll see is in the increase. It will give us baseline on each athlete at the beginning of the season to evaluate for concussions if needed during the season. Individual sports shows a decrease of $78.58. This is the second year in a row with a decrease in this line. The uniform budget line switched from field hockey to boys and girls basketball. We try to replace uniforms approximately every 5 years. 7-8 Summer school, the proposed budget maintains current levels for the summer school stipends.
I'm going to continue with warrant article 6. Everybody keeping track at home. 9 to 12 co-curricular portion of this article is currently up $51.75, or 0.13% from the previous budget, maintaining current programming offerings and levels. 9 to 12 athletics and individual sports, this portion of the article currently reflects a 3.33% increase, or $12,889.23. The budget proposal maintains current program offerings. We have not increased or decreased any offerings. The increase in this area reflect an increased cost per mile transportation and an increase in 504 compliance, and that increase is to reflect actual expenditures in that particular line. This year's request does not include $6,000 to replace our cheering mats. The cheering mats are well used, quite compressed, and are in need of replacement. However, we're looking to get one more season out of them. We'll be back next year. Mark your calendars, and we'll be looking for cheering mats. 9 to 12 summer school, we are maintaining current levels in summer school offerings. And I don't think I need to repeat the total again, the already gave them. So that's warrant article 6.
Good evening. Warrant Article 7, Student and Staff Support. The proposed budget for Warrant Article 7, Student and Staff Support, is $2,269,024. This is an increase of $27,182, or 1.21%. The reasons for the increase are we have had additional translation and interpretation costs for our ELL students. This is based on actual need. We will have an increase in our GT budget. We need to provide some of our students with specialized coursework in order to meet their needs. There will also be an increase in the technology budget due to one-to-one devices. This increases to support the JAMP licensing that's necessary for the iPads that our pre-K to second grade students have, as well as repair lines for the increased devices pre-K to 12. And finally, there will be a decrease we are predicting in this line as the state will be covering some of the costs for NWEA testing next year.
This is warrant article 8, Systems Administration. And Systems Administration includes the school board, the office of the superintendent, as well as business office. The proposed budget for warrant article 8 for next year is $695,910. This is an increase of $39,992, or 6.1%. School board legal liability insurance has increased. School board supplies have decreased a little to match the 3-year average. The MSBA, or Maine School Board Association dues for board members, they have increased. The software maintenance agreements line has decreased because there was a one-time startup fee for school blocks, which hosts our website. That no longer is needed. And there are changes in contractual obligations, as there are in many warrant articles. The business office software maintenance agreements line has increased due to hosting ABS, which is our financial software. And again, that increases security for us, which is a very good thing. And the technology lease has decreased due to completing payment of a 5-year laptop lease purchase in FY21. And I'm also going to do warrant article 9, which is school administration. The proposed budget for school administration for next year is $1,748,329. This is an increase of $48,485, or 2.85%. There are changes in contractual obligations, again, negotiated salaries and benefits. There are some changes in computer software due to some costs being per student. And there are some small increases in supply costs as well.
I want to start off by apologizing for the picture on the front of your binder. Every year we get the board together and do a group picture, but because of the pandemic, we weren't able to. I really tried to get an epic picture of one of those Zoom calls with the horns behind Betsy's head, but I wasn't able to capture one that that really did it any justice, so I just went with the apple and the books for money. I will be reviewing warrant article 10, 11, and 12. I'm going to start with warrant article 10, transportation. Proposed budget for warrant article 10, transportation is $2,163,748. This is a decrease of $136,049, or 5.92%. Areas reflected in the budget are the purchase of one new 84-passenger bus and two new 72-passenger buses through a 5-year lease purchase loan with a state subsidy offset through the ED 279. This year includes a proposal for an 84-passenger flat nose, which will allow for additional students as well as storage underneath, reducing the number of buses that will need to go to athletic events. New buses provide more reliable transportation for students with less interruption in their school schedules when mechanical bus breakdowns occur. Driver salaries have increased due to contractual obligations. However, overtime and substitute costs have been reduced. There will be no special education vans budgeted for in FY22, resulting in a reduction of $13,000. Budget costs for tires have increased by $7,400 due to reflect the fleet needs. Budget costs for parts have increased by $25,000 due to additional vehicles as well as increased cost in parts. Kim had mentioned earlier that we were going to be proposing prepayment of some items. Those items are focused in warrant article 10 and 11. So the items in warrant article 10 are 2 buses that are year 5, so that would be the last payment on them. 2 buses that are year 3, 3 buses that are 2 buses that are year 3, 2 that are year 2, and then the digital radios, which are year 3 of 5. Special ed transportation has been reduced by approximately $24,500 in out-of-district salaries and benefits and special ed contracted and parent transportation due to change in student needs and the manner in which they are transported. Warrant Article 10 reflects a decrease of $136,049, or 5.92%. Warrant Article 11, facilities and maintenance. Proposed budget for warrant article 11, facilities and maintenance for 21-22 is $2,778,413. This is a decrease in the budget of $546,902, or 16.36%. The budget represents the following: an increase in property insurance costs, prepaying of the following items: year 3 payment for a Green Central School radio system in the amount of $6,432, $362,004 payment for Siemens Phase 1, $15,203 payment for digital transportation radios, $5,074 payment for John Deere Gator, $11,521 for Yanmar loader that was purchased last year, $8,044 payment for a 2019 Ford F-250 with plow that was purchased last year. In addition, one of the changes that we've made this year is has been a movement from facilities of $45,666 for year 5 of the track project. This was moved to local only debt, which you will see on the revenue sheet per instruction on by the Maine Department of Education. There's really a 0% overall impact of that. It's just a movement and correction. Custodial and maintenance equipment has been reduced by approximately $30,000 from FY21 final budget. What's I missed line? Siemens Phase 1 remains in facilities due to the manner in which it was financed, lease purchase versus a bond. You'll see that Siemens Phase 2 is actually in local-only debt. Siemens Phase 1 remains in facilities because of the way that it was voted on for approval. Minor capital improvements have been reduced by $58,000 from the FY21 final budget. Furniture has been reduced by $20,000 from the FY21 budget. Unemployment costs were increased from $500 to $3,500 in each school in anticipation of the end of the school year, reducing the need for custodial subs. Warrant Article 12. Proposed budget for warrant Article 12 debt service for 21-22 is $476,421. This is an increase of $158,611 or 49.91%. $306,585 of the budget is for the green and trip renovations and additions and Leeds and Turner parking lot improvements bond, which is 2004B. This payment is $267,000 annually with $39,585 in interest for next year. This bond will be paid off in FY25. $45,666 for the athletic field. This is the one that was moved from facilities to local only debt service. This will be year 5 of the 15-year bond. $106,015 for Siemens Phase 2. It was added in FY21 for vote. Well, no. The amount was added in FY22 per voter action in FY21. This will be year 2 of the 20-year bond. Last year was interest only. $18,154 for Leeds Central School SRRF School Revolving Renovation Fund was budgeted. This is year 1 of the 10-year bond, and that is a 0% interest bond. Debt service reflects an increase of $158,611 for 49.91%.
Good evening, everybody. I'm David Roberts, the Food Service Director. I'll be summarizing warrant article number 13 for food service. To echo our superintendent's comments at the beginning, the last 12 months have been very exceptional. We've had to reinvent where we do virtually everything: staffing, logistics, purchasing, inventory control, food prep, food delivery, sanitation, packaging, accounting, equipment, and entirely new regulatory requirements. So we've been very fortunate with very good staff. We've been able to develop fine-tuned operations that allow us to deliver meals to the students in the classrooms. We've established public pickup sites at all of our schools 3 days a week, which incidentally is a requirement, federal requirement, to adopt this type of program. And that is also a primary way of getting food to students on their remote days. We've also implemented a district-wide mobile meal delivery system using a new van, which we run that 3 days a week as well. We've actually seen an uptick in overall meal counts in the last 12 months, both breakfast and lunch, which is kind of unusual. The state of Maine is reporting total lunches served to be down 30% during the pandemic, and we're actually up. With staffing efficiencies, strategic purchasing, and menu plans, we've helped control costs. The USDA waivers are allowing us to receive full reimbursement for all of our meals in lieu of parent payments, and that's put us in a pretty good position budget-wise. So consequently, as Kim alluded to earlier, we're requesting a lower subsidy of $50,000, which is $20,000 less than we requested last year. And keep in mind that that represents about 5% of our total revenue. The other 95% comes from state and federal subsidies and parent payments. There is some uncertainty about what's going to happen in the fall. Is the payment plan going to go back the way it was? Will we continue to get full reimbursements? We're not really sure, but we are projecting a little bit less in revenues because we think enrollment might be down a little bit, at least initially. But for us, that also means overall lower expenses. There's less students in the building, so most of our expenses are projected to go down a little bit next year too as well. So on the salaries and benefits, there are a couple of locations where we have slight increases, where staffing levels remain the same, but the increases are reflected because of contractual agreements. Under equipment and repairs, we still allocate money for repairs and ongoing maintenance of boilers, refrigeration, and things like that. Sometimes unforeseen things happen, so we have contingency monies in there, expenses as needed. We have had a good history of major equipment upgrades over the last several years. We're in a good position in all of our kitchens, so there's no major equipment purchases being planned for 21-22. And under food and other costs, we are projecting, again, a little bit less meal counts, but relatively flat in food costs because we anticipate that some of the commodity costs are going to go up. Overall expenses are projected to slightly decrease in 4 of 6 schools as our district level expenses. And overall, we're going to be requesting $20,000 less, which results in a 28% decrease in the general budget impact.
Good evening, Razel Ward. I'm your district's adult education director. And I'm here to present to you warrant Article 20. The proposed adult education budget includes a local appropriation of $164,210. This reflects no change in our request for the past 4 years. Fortunately for us, the CRF funds this year supported a lot of technology so we could deliver remote and hybrid instruction. And that helped keep our budget lines for this next year lower. There are no local tax dollars used to support enrichment programs. These programs are self-supporting and they paid for by the registrations of fees associated with them with people who register. Any additional revenues from enrichment programs actually are turned into supporting our academic programming, which is for adult basic education, high school diploma, high set preparation and exams, and college transitions programming. All portions of the budget that you will see maintain current funding levels or have been increased and decreased to more accurately reflect program needs and or expenditures and to support program initiatives. There are no major programming changes proposed. Warrant Article 20 reflects a 0 increase in local contributions towards the adult education program. Thank you very much.
Thanks to everyone for walking us through those executive summaries that certainly hit the high points on each of these warrant articles. Board members will have the opportunity to delve into more detail on each of these as we move through the next few meetings. And certainly I would encourage everyone to, as you review the warrant articles, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions for the various directors and Michelle and Superintendent Brandt, so we can clear up anything that is out there for questions, and everyone can be prepared to discuss those warrant articles as we move forward with those. And item 4.1.4 is initial budget books distributed, and Michelle's way ahead of us on that. We all have them, and I must say that I do actually like the cover, especially now that I know that the other option would be a picture of an inadvertent wall art placement on my part. So thanks, Michelle, for getting these to everyone, and too bad about the pandemic keeping you from grabbing that picture. Thank you. Do we have any other items that we need to take up as far as the budget work session is concerned tonight? Great. Well, thanks to everyone for all the work that's gone into this, and we look forward to getting into the details further. It brings us to item 5, adjustments to the agenda. Kim?
Yes, please add Carla Logley to agenda item 10.1. And please note that Elizabeth Karen is removed from agenda item 10.1.
Thank you for those. That brings us to committee reports. Finance, you're ready.
We have met tonight. We had a presentation from Mr. Roberts, which we will talk about later on at 10.2. And we also had a discussion tonight about the temporary filling in for some support with the facilities director position. And Kim and Michelle have been working on some different options to see how the district can move forward with that.
Thank you. Brings us to PTB, and that would be me. I'll check out my notes here. So again, that was a relatively short agenda there. Kim and Michelle brought a proposal to share more information that they had received from Siemens regarding what's called an O2 prime system. And clearly we're all pretty concerned about everybody's health and safety at this point, especially as we get folks back into the buildings more this coming year and moving forward. We certainly want to keep those things at the top of the list. And this system, as Michelle described, is a fairly simple system that's an ionization system that should help not only with reducing viral load in all of our buildings, and helps out with mold too, which is a handy side benefit. Makes me think, and dust as well. Makes me think that I should put one in my home. So I'll check with Kim or Michelle afterwards. But Superintendent Brand did do a fair bit of research on this and noted that there are surrounding districts who have already installed some of these systems, including Lake Region, Poland, Lisbon, Oxford Hills. So we would certainly not be guinea pigs on this. And the discussion that was shared with PTB was moving forward with utilizing ESSER 2. Just if you don't feel like we've had enough acronyms yet tonight, that's the most current round of federal COVID-related support funding to install these systems in all the buildings in the district, and it seemed that the grand total for that would be approximately $537,000, and there would be the ability to have these systems in place for fall. So as we get folks back into buildings, hopefully more densely populated here, at some point we would have the ability to make our buildings that much more safe as well. The other item that Michelle brought to the committee was a list, as had been done in years previously, of kind of more itemization of new budget proposals for some of the facilities, and we touched on transportation as well. So as you could tell from the executive summaries and from the state of the overall budget, this is not a particularly long list, that folks were quite conservative in their needs this year. So the items included on this list provided the committee with a little bit more detail, and we'll obviously see those as we get into the warrant articles as well. So thanks, Michelle, for providing that and getting us back in that habit as well. Any questions for what PTB discussed? And we will discuss the O2 prime ventilation systems further in 10.3. So all the stuff that I've missed thus far, Michelle and Kim can fill in at that point. If not, we move on to curriculum policy. Joanne?
We have not met.
Curriculum policy has not met. Olivia, on to you.
I don't have any exciting activity updates as I did last week, but I did want to touch on a couple of things. First of all, I just wanted to say that from my personal observation, I think that food services did an excellent job, especially last spring when we were all at home and quarantined. I went on a lot of walks past the town office, which was one of the food distribution sites, and every single time I went by, there were always people there picking up food and picking up meals, and I think that benefited a lot of families. And that was really great to see that that need was met. Second, I wanted to say that I'm very pleased to see that the Gifted and Talented program is asking for additional funding for this year. I've been lucky to be a part of that program since I was in 4th grade. So now I'm a senior, so I've benefited from that program for many years now. I think that's very beneficial, especially at the elementary and middle school levels, where there's not as many opportunities for advanced students to branch out and get that additional curriculum. Whereas at the high school level, there is the opportunity to take AP and advanced courses, but at those levels it's not. So I think it's just that much more important. This is a very small thing in the budget, but I know a couple of years ago that there was the addition of, in the English department, of allowing students to keep all of the books that they're provided with throughout the year, to take notes in them. And from my experience, I just wanted to say that I think that was an excellent addition. I think that that's really prepared a lot of students going on to college coursework, and where you're having your own textbooks is a completely different application and approach to learning. And having taken so many college courses myself, I've been able to compare the two. I just think that's really made a big difference in my education and a lot of others as well.
Thanks, Liv, and as always, thanks for sharing your experiences as well. It's very helpful for us. Non-teaching negotiations, AFSME and ESB. Jessica.
We have not met, but we will meet before our next board meeting.
Excellent, thank you. Brings us to administrator report, building principals.
Sure. Good evening. Students are settling back in after the winter break. This past Tuesday and tomorrow are our Spirit Days, and the theme this month is team sports. And each team will, the kids will all vote on the best outfit, and one of the students from each team will receive a $5 gift card for their efforts. So it's kind of fun. The March newsletter will go out to parents at the beginning of next week. We send it through a school messenger this year, and it seems to get to people more readily than it had with having the students take it home. We also are posting it on our website. So if you'd like to take a look at the TRIP website, you can see all of our newsletters. Trimester 2 grades close on March 12th, and report cards will be mailed home on March 19th. Lastly, I want to give a shout out to the teachers and staff at TRIP who every day amaze me with their drive and determination to meet the needs of every student. It's phenomenal the work that we're getting done there, and I'm really proud of them. Thank you.
Back again. A couple of updates. Just a quick update on the winter sports. We're well into the winter sports season. In fact, we're probably on the downhill slide. No pun intended with the skiing part. With that, I think we wrap things up the middle of March. So we have a couple of weeks left on winter sports, and conversations are starting already about what spring might look like. I think we'll remember what it looks like, but it's going to take us a while to get back into the routine of it. Over the break, we had students in for Winter Academy, doing some credit recovery and some academic support, and it was very well attended with students and covered with staff, working on virtually all subject areas, so that was really good. Unfortunately, we had a snowstorm on the first day, so we had to have a snow day for Winter Academy. That seems to be it's becoming an annual occurrence at this point, but that's okay. We still had, I think, 3 days that we had students in. In addition to winter sports, we also have students working on the one-act play. It's going to be a little bit different this year than it has been in the past, and I've seen them around doing their video recordings and staging their work on that. It seems it's really really good when they get it all put together. I can't wait to see it. And last but not least, hey, it's been warm the last couple of days. We've got some taps in the trees, and the sap started running, and it is going to be springtime here soon. So we keep moving through it and making the best out of it that we can, and I think we're making some good forward progress. So thank you.
Good evening. At Turner Primary School, we're wrapping up our kindness word of the month. Our parent-teacher committee, along with our schools, have partnered to come up with random acts of kindness. So each of our students got a little checklist at our Turner schools to encourage them to promote them to participate in different random acts of kindness. So we're really excited to celebrate our word of the month at Turner Primary School. And in March, our word of the month is determined, which of course is about not giving up when things are tough. And so there's a lot of learning that happens in March, so we're really excited to celebrate that. And I know Superintendent Brandt said that there's no pandemic playbook, but there is a distance learning playbook. And all of the staff at all of our schools have been participating in a book study. And for those of you who are unaware, John Hattie, through research, has identified specific strategies that really promote high-yield student gains. And so what Hattie's done is he's translated those activities or strategies and talked about how they can be applied from a distance. So for example, we know how important relationships are between students and teachers, but as a staff and at all of our schools, we talked about how can we form those relationships from a distance. Now luckily, like Superintendent Brandt shared, we've been able to go to school and see our kids every day, but we had a lot of great discussions about how can we from a distance continue to foster and maintain those relationships. Another huge thing that's really important to learning is teacher credibility. And so how do you as a teacher become credible to students from a distance? And so the book, there's a variety of different strategies that teachers can apply to become more comfortable with teaching from a distance. So we were able to participate in the book study, and we just finished this last Wednesday. We talked about assessment, grading, and feedback, and what that might look like from a distance. And we had a lot of great conversations at Turner Primary School about things that we're learning and things that we're doing to learn to be a little bit more comfortable teaching in a way that we never ever thought that we would. Of course, with all of our one-to-one devices and our infrastructure improvements, as well as purchasing Seesaw and a variety of other educational software programs, it's helped us become a little bit more comfortable teaching the way that we never thought we would. So I just wanted to kind of showcase that we wrapped up our book study and that we as a staff at TPS had a lot of really great discussions. Thank you.
Hi, Danielle Harris at Leeds Central School. And I always love to share positive things, of course. There it is. Okay, so a lot of times I get emails where I have to deal with some kind of a problem, but I wanted to share an email that I got from a parent, well, it's actually a grandparent, of 3 fully remote students about the Chromebooks that we finally got for grades 3 through 6. And she said, please pass on to whomever should hear this. The new Chromebooks are amazing. Our tech stress levels should decrease exponentially. So it was really nice to get that email, and she sent it to me as well as Jeff. And Jeff commented about the cases on these new Chromebooks are also much better than what we had before, so we're hoping they'll hold up a little better and have a little less damage. So I was in the computer lab today, and I see there are still some kids that haven't gotten their new Chromebooks yet, so I'm hoping they'll get their forms signed and returned so that they can get those, because the ones that have gotten, we've been really happy about it and are pleased with the change. And it's nice for the teachers as well to have all students on the same device so that they can say, just go to this or that or whatever, and it looks the same on everybody's device versus somebody's on a phone and somebody's on a tablet, somebody's on a Chromebook. It makes it a lot harder when you're remote and trying to teach. So I also wanted to talk about the distance learning playbook because I was pretty excited this week when I've been doing with my staff. I let them choose whether they do it as a Zoom on Wednesdays or in person, spread out with masks and everything, in person in the music room on another day of the week. So we had our final distance learning playbook Zoom meeting yesterday, and the last chapter is about how when bad things happen, we still need to look for what we learned from that and not to try to rush back to doing things exactly what we did before, because lots of good things can come from this bad experience that we've all gone through. Some of the positive changes that we may want to consider keeping in the future are like some of our arrival and dismissal procedures that we've had. some people are really enjoying lunches in the classroom with their students instead of the big cafeteria full of noisy kids. It's really nice how we're reducing the amount of paperwork that we need to copy and send home and throw in the garbage. And sometimes kids can't lose their homework as easily if it's on the computer instead of shoved into their book bag. The one-to-one devices are just going to be completely changing the way that we teach. When we come back into the classroom with all of our students present, we still are going to have these devices, and it's going to change the way that we've taught. We're not going to go back to exactly what we did before. Some of the ways that it changed us positively is it makes it easier to differentiate with students. It makes it easier to do some of our interventions. It can be more engaging sometimes for children and make something into a game, and they're still learning from it. So that was my excitement this week, was like, yes, we're going to take some good things from this pandemic, and life is going to be better when we finally get back into all of our students being present. Excuse me. The last thing was that coming back from February vacation, I did hear a little bit of, wow, it's going to be such a long stretch till April vacation. We don't even get snow days anymore. They're remote learning days, and we don't have any workshop days in March like we usually do because we have all at the beginning of the year before school started. So it made me start thinking like, okay, how can we jazz up these weeks? So each of the weeks between now and April vacation, we're going to have on Tuesdays and Fridays, we're going to have special days to do something. For example, next week is Dr. Seuss's birthday. So on Tuesday and Friday next week, we'll have something to do with dress as your favorite Dr. Seuss character, or wear a red and white striped shirt, or do something in honor of Dr. Seuss. So that would be fun. Believe it or not, our 1-year anniversary of leaving and having COVID affect our education, it was March 13th last year. So on March 12th, as well as March 9th, we're going to do a 5-minute COVID dance party where we have music over the intercom and we're all dancing, and we're using our new TVs and Zoom to see what everybody else is doing. So even though we are now in the same room, we get to see everybody dancing and celebrating that we've made it for a whole year through this together. In the middle of winter, we always like to do a beach day. So in the middle of March, the middle week in March, we'll do beach day for each of the kids. They can, no bikinis, of course, but dress with their sunglasses and their hats and their towels and enjoy pretending to be at the beach. One of the ones that was brought to me today for an idea for the 4th week is Happy Pig Day. And it sounds really funny, but it's based on a Mo Willems book. So you have to read the book, which we'll have everybody read in advance, and then we'll celebrate Happy Pig Day that week. Another thing that people have seen other schools have done, so we're going to do, is have cereal boxes lined up down our hallway, and we're going to knock them over like dominoes and have everybody be able to watch that. And how cool is that? And then we'll donate the cereal to our food pantry. We're trying to figure out how to have a better than virtual book fair. Last fall, all of us tried virtual book fairs, and they weren't really that successful, so we're trying to figure out we have one scheduled for April, and we're trying to figure out how to make it successful and what we can do with in-person books and still follow all our COVID rules. So we'll have a book fair week. And then there's just one more week till April vacation. So I've put it out to my staff that I'm looking for ideas, and I'm sure that they'll come up with something great. And then believe it or not, after April vacation, there's only 6 more weeks because we aren't having snow days. We're out on June 7th. So by then the weather will be nice, and hopefully all these fun and exciting things that we're going to do will help get everyone through this long stretch of the end of winter. So thank you.
Good evening once again. I'm very happy to report that we had loads of student-made Valentines delivered from Green Central School to the Meadows, which is our local assisted living facility. That created a really great community connection from our school, and I think it really helped the kids understand the power of positive intent and caring out into the community for people that they perhaps don't even know, but it makes a significant difference in the lives of others. This week, selected students were recognized by staff members for the character theme of the month, which was perseverance, or as we call it for the littles, never giving up. That was a little easier for them to grasp. So students received a certificate and had their names read over the intercom during morning announcements. That was apparently a big thrill. So happy to do that. Use my radio announcing voice, and they really seem to enjoy it. Read Across America Week is coming up. So of course we're trying to figure out kicking off with a Spirit Week. And very much like Dr. Harris had just mentioned, we're starting with a Dress Like Your Favorite Book Character Day, and then we apparently, obviously there aren't enough days in person, so we have Color and Crazy Hair Day. I think they should have been two separate, but we're squeezing in all the fun that we can. The Crazy Hair Day speaks for itself, and the Color Day is we're giving each grade level a color to dress in, like every kiddo, like entirely in pink or entirely in purple or entirely in green. So I've also seen it called Crayola Crayon Day. So we'll see how that goes. Read Across America Week, we're stretching that also in a month. We're going to call it Read Across America Month. Teachers have created a reading bingo challenge, which we call Reado instead of bingo. And there are going to be little game boards with various squares across, and kids are going to do various reading activities and try to get across vertically, horizontally, diagonally. They're going to have several different sized boards. If they can do one with, X number across, say 5 in a row, they can change it in for 6 in a row. And the boards will be a little bit different for various grade spans, pre-K, K, and 1 will have one, 2 and 3 will have another, 4 to 6 will have a third one. And there'll be various things, so, like read at home in a blanket fort, read under, flashlight, something like that, read to a pet. So there'll be various ones, but you can't stack them, so you couldn't do all of those things at once and call it like 3 or 4 different things. It has to be done separately. So as those boards are filled, there'll be small prizes in the classroom. Occasionally there'll be drawings for free pizza, something like that. And then the biggie at the end of the year, we're going to keep track of all of these Reado boards. We're working in conjunction with the Masons and their Bikes for Books program, so there will actually be drawings using these Reado boards for students' bicycles provided by the Masons. So we're really, really excited about that opportunity as well. And as I wrap up, a shameless plug. Pre-K and kindergarten registration now underway for next year. If you have a child in a daycare, if it's your kiddo, you have a niece or nephew, a grandparent has a grandchild, the kiddo down the street that's out playing, please encourage the parents to get those students registered as soon as possible. Green Central has a link on its Facebook page. That link will get you right to the online registration form. You can stop by our school during office hours. We have a handy pickup window. We can provide you with paperwork. If you have any questions, please give us a call. But we're asking everybody to please get registered as early as possible. It really, really helps with our planning. So that is what's going on in beautiful downtown Queen. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Kelly Marston from Turner Elementary School. So I think our evening started with this year has been like no other, and it certainly has been like no other. So every time we come to a board meeting and we're thinking about what we're going to say, what we're going to share, I'm in my office going, what should I say? What shouldn't I say? So I'm like jotting things down. There's lots of great things to share, but never know which ones to narrow it down. So today do I share that the Winter Carnival was amazing, creative and fun, and students sent Valentines to the elderly, and one Valentine to a 93-year-old woman who wrote back to a small class and shared when her birthday was, and they are excitedly making her a birthday card to send to her. Do I say that 203 of our 249 in-person students now have their new devices and are working at home and doing really well with them? Or should I share kind of a snapshot of 2 things that happened this week in the life of a principal? And one of them, and that's what I felt was most important to share. So one day this week, I got a call from saying, Kelly, we have a problem. And in through the office door came a teacher with a big stack of sticky notes, and on it were messages, and these were found in the bathroom stall, and I don't know what we're gonna do about this. And as I looked at them, I kept reading through them, and they said things like, you're kind, and you're helpful, and you're beautiful, and don't give up. Things are hard, but we can keep going. And I'm running one after the other, and I just start giggling, and I'm not just I can't stop laughing. I said, this is like the greatest thing ever. Like, how many times have I gotten calls that there are naughty words written in the bathroom stall, and we need to go figure this out. But are you kidding me? We have sticky notes with nice, kind things written. I don't understand what the problem is. I want to know who this kid is. Let's find out who this is. So after some investigation, I had the pleasure of sitting down with a little girl who knows I asked permission to share Samantha Krebs. And I sat down with Samantha and I asked her, Samantha, I love this. This filled my heart. This made me so happy. It made me hopeful. What made you think to do this? And I said, did you do it during class? Did you leave and go in the bathroom and write these all that time? And she said, no. I was laying in my bed last night and I was thinking about, I couldn't sleep. And I thought about what can I do to make people happier. So I took a sticky notepad and I wrote these notes. And then I was able to fall asleep. When I came to school today, I wanted to put them up. And I wanted to make people smile. And I thought, that's such a cool thing that I get to be the principal in this school, and that's happening. So we had talked for years about how do we stop kids from writing things on the walls. And we've looked at schools who have done these beautiful murals inside bathroom stalls and walls. And I thought, ooh, this is when it's supposed to happen. So I asked Samantha, would you like to do a project? And I showed her pictures of things that we had dreamt about. And the custodian came in and she sat down and they talked about scraping off the paint and doing a nice clean canvas. In that same stall where she put up those sticky notes, she's designing. And we talked about what a graphic art designer would do to make a proposal. And so she's doing sketches and drawings to make a proposal of what she's going to do, and she's going to paint a mural in that stall. So that's something that happened that you might not hear about or know about, but it really gives me hope, and I think it's a really awesome thing to know that we have really great kids and we have adults fostering really great things. Like Gail, I want to also recognize the staff at TES, and there are too many examples of the things that amaze me every day. But again, a snapshot from just today, from this morning. Many of us are reading a book called Permission to Feel. And I met with my building leadership team this morning, and we talked about the notion of not asking how are you and kind of not listening and kind of going by as we've come to all be very familiar with, but instead looking at someone and saying, how do you feel? And then waiting for that and how totally uncomfortable that makes me and not want to be on the other end. But we talked as adults about that, and then we practiced that, how do you feel? And we were squirming. What I liked best about that isn't the important part. The important part that I want to share with you for that second snapshot is the 6th grade teacher who went back to her classroom and said to her 6th graders, I want you to take your writing notebooks, and before you come to morning meeting, I have one question for you. I just want to know how you feel. And the kids quietly went rogue, and she said, when you're ready, come sit down in the morning meeting. And around for morning meeting, she said, looked at each one of them, and she said, how do you feel? And she sent me a text after she had done that activity, and she said, that was the most powerful thing that I've done with my kids. I asked my kids, she said there were tears, there was honesty, and it made me change my entire morning. of what I did when I knew what was happening in their little brains and what they were thinking. We still did all the learning, but I changed it, and we did it a little bit different because we were able to learn in a different way because we took time to talk to each other about how we felt. I feel like those two things are snapshots that I wanted to share with you that reflect the people who are at TES, the adults that are working with kids, and the things that we can do there. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thanks everybody for the updates, and as always, definitely lots of hard work and lots of good work going on, so thank you for that. Superintendent's report. Kim?
Yes, so I wanted to make sure to thank Michelle and also your business office crew, because it is a lot of work to put together the budget books, and we appreciate them. They look great. I also want to thank the administrative team, because all the work on scouring lines and looking for what absolutely must be in the budget and what perhaps can wait is hard work, but you did a wonderful job with that. Executive summaries also highlighting what those things are. And the other thing that I wanted to share with the board is that we are in the process of beginning the search for a TMS principal. As you know, we are getting some good interest for the interview committee, and we have some great candidates who have applied for that. So very, very exciting, very local. We are getting ready to start the process for the facilities and transportation director, and I will give you an update on what that looks like for interview committee membership, as well as applications coming in as well.
Thank you. That brings us to public comment. Do we have any public wishing to comment? Going once? I'm sure we'll have lots of opportunities in upcoming meetings where folks may, in fact, have some comments they'd like to share with us, and we'll look forward to that. Brings us to old business, which we don't actually have any of. Moving right along to the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion for Carlos. Richard. Second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Brings us to new business. And item 10.1 is to report the completion of the probationary period for the following employees, with the changes as noted earlier. Carla Wadley, District Y, GT at Tech 3, and that's February 25th, 2021. Suzanne Huntington, Levitt Area High School Food Service Assistant, February 25th, 2021. Kelly Pomelo, Levitt Area High School Special Ed, FSP at Tech 3, same date. Judith Spray, Leeds Central School, Special Ed, FSP at Tech 3, same date again. Donna Stevens, Green Central School at Tech 1, the same. Elizabeth Wyman, TES, Special Ed, ASP at Tech 3, and the same date as well. That brings us to 10.2, approval of food service software program, Titan School Solutions. And this is something that Mr. Roberts had described to the Finance Committee, and here he is to describe it to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I presented this to the Finance Committee. I can summarize it for the board. We're proposing to enter into an agreement with Titan Software Solutions. They specialize in food service software in the school setting. And what this will do, it will manage our point-of-sale transactions at the cash registers. It'll support menu publication, menu services. It'll create an interactive menu accessible to parents online. It'll provide nutritional data and things like that. It'll give us more detail in student lunch accounts. It'll show parents not just what they're spending for money, but it'll detail which items have been purchased to include a la carte items. There's an online payment module that will be accessible to parents, and there's an online free and reduced application that's available for parents as well. Currently, if you're a parent in the district, you know that if you want to look at our menus, we have to go to the district website. If you want to check your student lunch account, you've got to go to PowerSchool. If you want to apply for free and reduced benefits online, you have to go to NutriCloud. If you want to make a payment online, you have to go to Android Pay. It's There's 4 different modules we're currently using. This would unite all those under one umbrella, and it would be a much easier interface for parents as well as staff. The cost would be paid for from food service revenues, no direct impact to the general budget. It's about $1,000 per year per location, with a $2,800 initial setup cost, which will allow us to enter into training between now and the fall. Any questions about the program, what it would do, and why we're advocating for it?
If there are no questions, then I can figure out how to turn our microphone back on. And we don't, and from a process standpoint, we don't necessarily need a motion to support this. This is something that can occur within the regularly scheduled kind of activities and budget of the food service program. Is that correct?
That is correct, Betsy. The reason that we wanted to bring it up was because there will be an ongoing cost to it. We don't anticipate it being any kind of concern, but because of that, we thought it was important to be very transparent about it.
Thank you. Yuri, did you want? Thank you to Mr. Roberts for bringing something that sounds like it simplifies things, which is fantastic.
It actually brings us into the 21st century with regard to the software that manages our programs. We're looking to do this over the years. As I mentioned at the meeting, this is all web-based, so there's no infrastructure costs, there's no computers need to be purchased. So the cost is much lower than it would have been 10 years ago when they wanted you to buy all the hardware to go along with it. Now it's all web-based.
Thank you very much. We look forward to that from our parents' standpoint, making life easier as always. Appreciate it. Brings us to item 10.3, and that is approval of using federal funding to install O2 Prime ventilation systems in schools. Kim or Michelle, which one of you would like to speak to that?
So as Betsy said earlier this evening, the O2 Prime would be installed and further support our ventilation systems by killing viruses, including COVID-19, in the air as well as on surfaces, which is wonderful. Also prevents mold, which is another great benefit there. It can be in place before the start of school, which we're all very hopeful about what the start of school could look like next year. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep students and staff as healthy and safe as possible. This O2 Prime is used I've got a whole list of school districts that have installed it and are very happy with it. I've spoken with my superintendent colleagues. Some of our local school districts, Betsy, I think you said Oxford Hills, Lisbon, 16, which is Poland, and Mechanic Falls and Minot, as well as a whole long list of other schools like Regions and others. And I know RSU4 is also considering that as well. We feel like going forward, Evan had asked the question about what would upkeep cost, and there's minimal cost to upkeep, which is another inviting piece of the O2 Prime. So we are proposing to use some of our SO2 funding to install the O2 Prime in all of our schools. So that means it would not have a general budget impact at all. But earlier this year, we were under such a condensed timeline with all of the coronavirus relief funding that we had to identify, get in touch with vendors, get invoices, do pricing, do all that in a very, very quick period of time. And the board had mentioned wanting to know more details about how we would use future federal money and the SO2 funds we have until 2023. So there's actually time to talk to you about some of the things that we would like to consider for those funds.
Thank you. Questions for Richard?
I had an email today from a gentleman saying he was going to be in our district. Is that a scam thing?
I don't know, Richard. I don't know what that is.
I thought maybe it was related to this.
No, we have not. No, we have not. We've not said we're definitively going forward with this because I wanted to speak to the committee and to the board about it first.
Other questions? Teresa?
I just wanted to say there are many vendors that are sending emails out to help school districts know how to utilize their ESSER funds. I probably get 6 a day, so I don't know without looking at it, Richard, but that might be my guess.
something else to look forward to in the email front. Olivia.
I'm just curious, does installing a ventilation system like this, do we have any knowledge that this might allow certain school districts to open earlier when we get to that time period?
Yeah, great question, Olivia. No, we don't. Because we've got the main DOE and the CDC requirements of distancing in place. This would not override that. But what it would do would it be another added layer of protection because it can kill the virus, plus the added benefit of the mold. And so we want to do everything we possibly can to make our environment as safe and healthy as possible. But that's a great question.
One of the points that came up, I think, in the initial subcommittee discussion as well as part of the appeal of this system is that it is not an additional cleaning solution of some sort. There's not something else that we're going to either spray or apply or something else like that, which clearly there's a lot of conversations going on about how we're cleaning and the different layers of cleaning and products and all that good stuff that we'll all have to sort out. And this would not add to that laundry list of things that we're doing in that regard, which certainly sounded appealing. So similar process type question. This, as we move forward, this is simply informational and advising the board of where the items that the team is feeling like is a good use of those. Let me make sure I get the acronym right. ESSER 2, 3, 6, 600. I'm not even sure at this point. 2 funds.
Yeah, 2. Yes, that's exactly it. And we just wanted to make sure that the board was aware in case there wasn't anything for further discussion or any questions.
Thank you, and thanks for all the work that's going into figuring out what the most impactful use of those funds will be, and always keeping health and safety at the top of that list. At this point, our remaining agenda item is an executive session. So, are there any other items of business that we need to take up while we have an audience at this point? If not, I would try not to get that close to the microphone again, but I would entertain a motion for 10.4, and that's an executive session to discuss the Tri-Town Education Association, TTEA, negotiations pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056D.
So moved.
And that was Carlos and Richard. All those in favor?